All right, y'all. I figured it out. This is the exact date when the Cowboys' 2024 NFL season started to go off the rails. You know what it was? Well, it happened in 2023. It was August 25th, 2023. And that's when the Cowboys traded their fourth round draft pick in the 2024 NFL draft for then 49ers quarterback Trey Lance. Now, Trey's not doing shit here. All right. He'll be lucky to be a Cowboy next year. He's the third string guy. He's the emergency quarterback every week. He's just taking up a roster spot at this point on the 53. He's basically worthless to this team. All right, we got duped. The team got duped. Jerry got duped. He didn't contact Mike McCarthy before making the trade. He just went and did it. All right? Shame on you, Jerry. I didn't hate the trade at the time. I thought we would have plenty of capital to go and draft a running back, but the draft kind of took different turns, ebbed and flowed different ways, and they just never took it back. And y'all remember what happened in that draft? The run on running backs didn't start until that fourth round. If you could have had guys like Bucky Irving, Jalen Wright, or my favorite guy, Braylon Allen, who he's taken a step back here with the Jets, but he was playing pretty well. All right. And he's the big bruising back this team needs. I mean, you look at the paradigm shift happening in the NFL right now. Defenses have gotten smaller to combat the passing attacks of these NFL offenses. And what's happened is now teams are starting to bulk up front. They're starting to play bigger running backs and have kind of a two-headed monster type approach where you have the bigger back and you have the smaller back. And you look at like the Ravens, and obviously Derrick Henry is a different animal altogether, but they have a nasty 1-2 punch between, really a 1-3 punch between their two running backs and the quarterback. So you look at the Cowboys now, and they don't have shit in the backfield. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Our Rico Dowdle should be a running back 2 at most in this league. Zeke Elliott, he's got no juice. Dalvin Cook, he hasn't been activated yet, so apparently he's just not good enough, or the Cowboys don't know what they want to do with him. Really, he's a copy and paste, in my opinion, of Zeke Elliott. So they're going to wait until Zeke's either hurt. They're going to maybe activate Cook later in the year when Zeke starts to wear down. But Zeke ain't doing shit for you right now anyways. So, I mean, I'd be okay with activating Cook now, seeing what he's got. But either way you cut it, I mean, the Cowboys aren't going to really do much on the ground this year. It's just the way it is. Their offensive line isn't blocking well. Zach Martin's taking a step back. These running backs aren't very good. So the Cowboys' ground attack is basically doomed unless something drastically changes after this bye week and this week against the 49ers. But you could have had a plethora of rookie running backs that were available in the fourth round, and instead you traded that fourth round draft pick for a guy who's really at this point probably fighting for his NFL life. Trey Lance might not even be on a roster next year. Maybe he'll go somewhere and compete for a second string quarterback spot. He might not make it out of camp, though. I'm sure he'll go to camp and he'll compete somewhere. Maybe in Dallas, maybe not. I don't know. But he's not going to be a starter anytime soon, if ever. He's going to be lucky to even be a second string guy in this league. And you might not even be that. So the Cowboys traded away this draft pick for what could have been a good running back this year. All right. A good rookie running back. You could have Bucky Irving, Braylon Allen. All these guys were available in the fourth round. And you had no pick. You had no pick. And you traded away for nothing. For a look at a guy is what you did. You traded away for a look at a guy who was a former top 5 pick in the NFL. And it didn't result in anything for you. So shame on you for doing that. And that's really when the season started to go off the rails, okay? The second part was when they didn't pick up any defensive tackles in free agency. Defensive tackle was a absolute glaring need. They lost all of their inside interior defensive linemen. You've now got 4 injuries to your defensive ends, all right? They made a play for Linval Joseph and Jordan Phillips late in August. I mean, everybody and their mom knew that this team needed defensive tackles, and this team refused to do anything about it. They drafted Justin Rogers in the 7th round, so they went into camp with basically Justin Rogers and Mozzie Smith. And Mozzie Smith had shown nothing. He was rehabbing all offseason, rehabbing his shoulder. So they were hoping that Mozzie Smith could somehow just be the guy magically, even though he showed you absolutely nothing last season, and you went in with no backup to him. I mean, this thing was doomed from the get-go. Let's be honest here, right? Let's just be honest. This thing with no running back, okay? No defensive tackles. You have a resurgence of linebackers, right? You ended up signing Eric Kendricks, which was a good signing. He's hurt, but it was a good signing. You got a bunch of young guys at linebackers, and they played all right. But they can't compete when the defensive line is living 3 yards backwards every single snap. I mean, short of the Giants game and a couple of the other ones, the Browns game, I mean, every time they're getting blown out, The defensive line is getting shoved 2-3 yards backwards on just about every single snap, and the linebackers can't compete. When you've got guys living in your lap, you can't compete, you can't flow to the ball, you can't do anything. It all starts on defense with the defensive lineman, and you ain't got shit at the defensive line. Even when you were healthy, you still got smoked by the Saints, and that can feed into my other video I did about professionalism in practice. Okay, I don't think the Saints are a better team than the Cowboys, but this defensive line, even with healthy guys in the game, got their asses kicked scheme-wise because they weren't where they were supposed to be on a lot of these plays. They're getting out-schemed, out-coached. There is a lack of, I hate to say it because I hate to be the intangibles guy and I hate to talk about this stuff because there's no definitive answer, but it looked like a lack of effort even in that game. So this whole thing is troubling, okay? The first stone that fell was that trade in 2023 because that fucked you in getting a chance to pick up a guy in the draft in the backfield at running back. There was a plethora of them, and you didn't have a pick available at the time. Okay, so there's stone number one. Stone number two, you didn't sign one of the many defensive tackles that were available, okay, in free agency. You didn't even try to. You didn't bring anybody in for any visits. You didn't even try to do anything at all, okay? And there was a plethora of them, and a lot of these guys signed for less than what they were expected to sign for. All right? And they're playing well right now on their respective teams that they signed with. Can you imagine how different this Cowboys defense could look with just one competent defensive tackle? Think about the difference last year in 2023 when Jonathan Hankins came in the game. Okay, and he was a below average defensive tackle. But think of the difference between Mozzie Smith playing and Jonathan Hankins. The team was at least somewhat competent in the trenches on defense when Jonathan Hankins was in the game. When Mozzie Smith was in the game, they were fucked. All right? It was game over. So I don't know how they can look at the tape last year and think, man, Mozzie Smith is probably going to show up this year. We don't really need to sign anybody else. And then who they signed at the end of August? They went and got a trade with the Giants. That tells you right there, if your division rival's trading you a guy, that guy's not going to be very good, if we're being honest. They're not going to trade somebody who can go and hurt them later on in the season 2 times that year. Okay, maybe 3 if you make the playoffs. So it's going to take a lot for a division rival to go in and make a move and trade you a guy that is worth anything, okay? Because this guy's not. He's horrible. The Cowboys put him on IR for wrist injuries. He didn't even have a wrist injury. That was just bullshit because they didn't like what they saw in that game, okay? The other guy, Linval Joseph, he's like 155 years old in defensive tackle years. You can tell he's slow. Now, he's made a couple of good plays this season, and if he's a depth piece, that's fine. But to rely on him as one of the mainstays on this defensive line, it's a mistake. It's a mistake. He's slow. You can see guards crossing his face before he's even halfway out of his stance. His hand's still coming out of the ground, and you have offensive linemen crossing his face, sealing him off. I mean, the team is doomed if they can't get any sort of penetration or even just hold their ground, read and react on the defensive line, and these guys can't even do that. So those 2 things right there, the Trey Lance trade, not signing or even pursuing a defensive tackle in free agency, those were the first 2 stones that really kind of screwed this team over. And then it seems you have a psychological effect, and here we go, I'm going to talk more intangible stuff, even though I hate doing it, but what the hell, man, this season's gotten out of hand, so let's go ahead and talk about it. Why not? There seems to be a psychological effect that's left over from this Green Bay loss, okay? And now that's trickled into these contract talks with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, and there just seems to be some sort of poor mental state on this team. I can't quite put my finger on it, but CeeDee Lamb, he's out here jogging routes, as Troy Aikman pointed out. He's out here jogging routes, and you can go see it on the film. When he's not getting the ball's not coming his way, he's not really playing 100%. And listen, this guy is going down, he's blocking every now and then when the ball comes his way. That's fine. Good job. Okay? But you got to execute at the bare minimum. That means showing up to practice. And again, I'll point to my other video that I just put out. And these guys aren't practicing well. It's forcing Mike McCarthy to change how practices are being run now moving forward, as he stated in his presser. Okay? But these guys aren't practicing well. That's effort. That's attention. And you're a professional. So you need to show up to practice. That's like line item number 1 on your job resume or your job standard. Just to show up. Show up and practice. Okay? You can't do that. You're not going to... This isn't the NBA. You can't just show up on game day and play well. You're not these just superstar guys where an individual performance is going to take over the game. Right? You're 11 guys on the field. You have to work as a cohesive unit, and if one guy's out of line, the whole thing falls apart. And the way you get that figured out is practice, okay? So go watch my other video. I talk about all that in that video about practice and professionalism, okay? But again, that plays into the fact that these guys seem to have some sort of psychological issue. I mean, you see Dak making mistakes left and right that he didn't make last year, these interceptions, and some of those are on other guys not doing what they're supposed to do or where they're supposed to be at. You saw the throw to CD Lamb, supposed to be it looked like a comeback route, but CD ended up just going to the corner of the pylon, and there was miscommunication. Whatever, we don't really know what happened there. But those things keep happening, and it's disgusting because these are professionals. CD and Dak have been playing together for years at this point. So the fact that they're not on the same page, that's probably something to do with the holdout from CD, something to do with these lingering psychological effects, not putting in the effort during the week to be on the same page. And listen, this whole thing is just disgusting. There's been a series of mistakes and errors from the players, from the coaches, from the owner, all the way stemming from last year that are now feeding into what's going on this season. I don't know what else to say, man. I don't know. I kind of went off a little bit longer than I wanted to in this video. I kind of got on a roll there with the intangibles that I don't really like to talk about. But at the end of the day, it's part of the thing. So listen, if you're watching this video, I host a Storyliners community chat. This is for Nick Eatman's. It's almost like a Nick Eatman Storyliners fan page. For anybody that doesn't know Nick Eatman, he works for the Dallas Cowboys. He runs a podcast called Cowboys Storyline. And on Twitter, I created with another person the Cowboys Storyliners. So you just go to Twitter, look up Cowboys Storyliners. It's a community. And every Thursday, I host it's called a space. So all of us get together. We talk Cowboys football. Sometimes Nick joins. Sometimes his producer, Chris Beam, joins. We have some other Cowboys podcast guys that join. And listen, we just chill and have a good time. So if you want to come talk shit, you want to come talk Cowboys, whatever it might be, you want to just vent, man, look us up on Twitter, Cowboys Storyliners, and you can join us from there. Let me know what you think about this video and what I said in the comments below. If you think I'm stupid, if you think this makes sense. Either way, let me know. Catch you later.